In 1925, the Geneva Protocol banned the use of chemical weapons in the aftermath of the horrific and barbaric use of them in World War I. Now, they are apparently deployed against innocent civilians yet again. Former Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Dan Gillerman, joins us from Tel Aviv. He is also a Fox News contributor. Ambassador, you know, this is a direct challenge to the civilized world. At least the 8th use of the suspected chemical weapons in Syria. And the world has long said never again in the wake of the Holocaust, but it's happened again. How should the international community and President Trump respond?
Well, Eric, to put things in proportion, this happened literally 40 miles from the Israeli border, very near to us, very near to home. And I must say that I'm disappointed at the reaction so far of the international community and of the United States. Last time, or a year ago exactly, when a horrific attack like this took place, the president sent missiles. Today, so far, he sent a tweet. I don't think a tweet is going to be very concerning to the butcher of Damascus and his sponsors, the Iranians and the Russians. This is what happens when you let that axis of evil run amok. And, you know, they're killing their own people, they're killing women and children, and the world is standing still. I'm struck by the hypocrisy. You know, Eric, just a few weeks ago when those 2 Russian citizens were attacked in a mall in England, the whole world came up against it, sent back Russian diplomats and put sanctions upon Russia. These were 2 people who weren't even killed. Here, the numbers are probably much higher. There are about 200 people, including women and children, butchered, and the world is standing still. And this worries me very much. I think we should see a very, very strong and determined response by the international community and especially by the United States.
Well, Ambassador, excuse me for interrupting. The president, though, tweeted that there will be a big price to pay. That's his quote. Are you calling for new airstrikes, more airstrikes again? And what if they entangle and are tangled with Russia and the Russian assets and warplanes and Russian troops? Could that lead to a wider conflict, something that certainly could be unimaginable?
Well, I certainly believe that when the president says there'll be a high price to pay, there will be a high price to pay, and there should be a high price to pay. And I think that if the Russians are that deeply involved and actually active there, as are the Iranians, they should take into account that when they support the butchery and the viciousness of Assad, then they should also be prepared to pay the price. And I think the United States has proved in the past that it has always done the right thing and stood by its own principles and values. This is a test for the values of the United States and the rest of the world. I don't think America should be alone in this. I think other countries, including England, France, and European countries, should take part and make clear to those vicious allies that this will not be condoned and this will not be accepted.
Well, how do you do that, Ambassador?
These are war crimes.
How do you exactly do that? I mean, tomorrow there'll be a Security Council meeting. It'll likely be again blocked by Russia because they've got the veto, so that's basically meaningless in terms of any action. What are you calling for specifically in terms of military action or some other type of move?
Well, Eric, you know the UN as well as I do, and we spent some time there together. The Security Council will go through the motions, the Russians will veto it, and that'll be it. I don't think it worries anyone. I think that this kind of attack actually calls for military action. I'm always very hesitant asking other countries to do, you know, what we think is right. But in this case, especially after the president indicated that he's about to pull out its forces from Syria, I think he should reconsider, because leaving a void and leaving a vacuum in this country, which has been torn apart and is now led by real forces of evil like Iran and with the Russian support, the Russians supporting it, I think the only thing they understand, and unfortunately the only thing most people in our region understand, is force and power. And I think it should be used when such atrocities take place.
And Ambassador, what about the Russians saying that would be unacceptable? They say, finally, that would be, quote, met with the most serious consequences if the U.S. launches another round of airstrikes.
Well, I wouldn't be too concerned about the Russian reaction. You know, Putin is behaving as if he is the Tsar of a world power. Russia is far from it. It's really on the brink of bankruptcy. The United States is still the strongest, most powerful country in the world. And I don't think that words like these from Putin should be, you know, in any way worrisome to a world power like the United States. The United States should do what it thinks it's right, as it always has done. The United States was never cowered by dictators, and it shouldn't be now. And I think one of the problems is that President Obama has allowed Assad to continue to reign and has allowed the Russians to take control of Syria. And we're seeing the consequences. And I think that the only one who can stop this from becoming another genocide is the United States of America.
Former ambassador to the United Nations from Israel, Dan Gillerman from Israel, talking about what has been an overwhelming human catastrophe that has so sadly and tragically been allowed to basically continue by the international community. Ambassador Gillerman, we've had a bit of a delay because you're in Tel Aviv, I'm in New York. Thank you for joining us.